Hi, hello everyone. I am Prashant Nandam. Welcome back to our channel. And as a part of our AWS Masterclass series, today we will see session 9, which explains about OSI models. Session 9 today we'll be covering, and we will see OSI model overview and concepts. And I have prepared notes or the content for our OSI model in our GitHub repo. You can go through it. And here OSI model is a Open System Interconnection Model. Okay, OSI stands for Open System Interconnection Model, and it is a conceptual framework that explains how data travels across network. Okay, and it has 7 layers. What it has? It has 7 layers. It has 7 layers, and layer 1 is physical. Let me put it to you. Just a moment. It has 7 layers, and layer 1 is physical layer, and 2 is data link layer, three is network layer, fourth one is transport layer, and then session layer, then presentation layer, and layer 7 is application layer. These are the 7 layers. Okay, these are 7 layers which we have, which is layer 1 to layer 7. And what are they? They are uh, physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, and application layer. Well, now if you see in this image, it explains the complete OSI model. Okay, and here on the sender side, data goes from top to bottom. Okay, this is the sender side, and here data goes from top to bottom, which means it starts at application layer and goes till physical layer. Okay, and at the receiver side, it goes from bottom to top, which means it goes from physical layer, which is layer 1, to application layer, which is layer 7. And this process is called, let me write, this process is called en- encapsulation and decapsulation. This process is called encapsulation and decapsulation. And on the sender side, data transmits from the top to bottom, and on the receiver side, data goes from bottom to top. Okay, and this process is called encapsulation and decapsulation. Now if you see here, application layer, which is layer 7, what happens here is the application layer creates a data. Suppose you types a message or opens a browser, and here the application layer goes on, like it adds a protocol HTTP, and the data is plain data here in the application layer. Layer 7, which is application layer, here the user creates a data. Okay, the user creates a data, and it is in plain data. Okay, and application protocol is added, which are HTTP, FTP, and SMTP. These are added at layer 7, and the data is plain here. Okay, and at the application layer is, for simple word, let's say as At the application layer, the user creates a data or data is created. Okay. Now, next what happens? The presentation layer. In the layer 7, the application layer creates a data, and in the layer 6, what it is? It is a presentation layer. If you see, application layer is 7 and presentation layer is 6. In presentation layer, what happens? Here the data which is plain data, which was in HTTP or FTP, is being formatted, and it also encrypted if needed, and it also compresses the data. Okay, and in addition to that, it adds a presentation header. Okay, in the presentation layer, the data is formatted, encrypted, and compressed if needed. Okay, and in addition to this, presentation header is added. Presentation header is added, which is, we can say, PH, presentation header, which means for the data it adds some value. Presentation layer, now this makes data more secure and readable. Okay, and the presentation layer also makes, let's say, it makes data more secure and readable. Cool. Now in next step, what is session layer, which is layer 5. In session layer, what happens is, in layer 5, which is session layer, here session is created between the sender and the receiver. A session is created between the sender and the receiver. Okay, and keeps the communication stable between them, and a session header is added to the data. Earlier, presentation header, which is PH, added to our data, and now in the session layer, it creates a session between the sender and the receiver. That is fine, clear. And in addition to this, it adds session header sh to the data, or we can say it adds session header sh, or it is added. Cool. And here session layer controls the conversation. Remember that in application layer, what it is happening, the plain text is being created in the application layer. Sender types a plain text. Let's say you sent a message to your friend or someone saying hi, and the presentation layer makes it secure, and it compresses the data or formats the data and adds a presentation header. And then on the session layer, it creates a session between you and your colleague or someone whom you sending the message. What happens there? A session is created and a communication is started, and a session layer, which is session header, which is added to the your data. Okay, hope you understood. And now in the session 5, we understood session is controls here, and sh header is added. And in the transport layer, which is layer 4, here it is very important layer. Okay, it is very important layer. Why? Because data is broken into segments here. The data which you are sending to your colleague of Scrum 1 is broken into segments, into pieces, I mean to say, and port numbers are added here. Port numbers are added, which you can choose TCP or UDP. It is chosen. TCP or UDP is chosen, and it is a it breaks your data into segments. Let's say you started saying hi, and it breaks it into segments, and the transport header is added. The presentation layer adds a presentation header, the session layer adds session header, and the transport layer adds transport header, and the data is chosen with the TCP and UDP ports. Okay, transport layer ensures correct delivery is happening. Okay, transport layer ensures correct delivery, which means it makes the data with the secure way, and it breaks into its segments, and then it moves it to the next layer. What it was next layer? Layer 3. What are layer 3? Layer 3 is network layer. In the network layer, what happens? IP addresses is added. IP addresses is added, and then root best route is chosen. Routes, routes, right? We explained in the Linux session. Routes has been chosen, and it adds network header to the data. Network header to our data. Network header. Okay, and here what happens? Router is came into picture, and network header is added, and network layer decides where data should go. The network layer decides where the data should go. Okay, and next we have what it is going, data link layer, which is layer 2. In layer 2, what happens? In layer 2, MAC address for the in the layer 3, which is network layer, IP addresses is added, and in the layer 2, MAC addresses is added, and frame is created, and error detection happens here. Here MAC addresses is added, MAC addresses are added, and frame is created, and in addition to that, what happens? If any error detection is also happens here, and data link header and data link trailer is added. Data link header is added. Data link header is added, and you can say devices like switch and those comes into picture. Data link layer handles local delivery. Okay, and at last what we have? Physical layer. Layer 1, what it was? Physical layer. Here what happens? Data is converted into bits. Data is converted into bits, which is zeros and ones, and sent through the cable or Wi-Fi or any fiber. Actual transaction through physical medium happens here. Actual transmission through physical layer happens here. Okay, which is physical medium. And here physical layer sends the actual signal. Now what happens? In the these all from the sender side. What all we have seen is from sender side. In the sender side, what happens? Application sender creates a data, and the application layer makes it plain data, and then it moves to the presentation layer. In the presentation layer, what happens, data is formatted, encrypted, and compression is happens if needed, and it adds a presentation header to the data, and then it goes to layer 5. In layer 5, what happens, create the session between the sender and the receiver and adds the session header. Then layer 4 is very important. Why? Data is broken into segments and port numbers are added, which may be TCP or UDP. Then in layer 3, IP addresses come into the picture, and it decides how the data should go. Then MAC addresses are added and the frame is created, and error, if any error detection is also happens here. And at the layer 1, data is converted into bits, raw bits, which is zeros and ones, and sent through the cable or Wi-Fi, and the actual transmission happens here. Okay, here actual transmission happens. This all from the sender side. Now on the receiver side, decapsulation happens. If you see now, if you see here, it started from application layer, which is layer 7, and goes till layer 1. Now in the receiver side, it is reverse. It starts at physical layer and goes to application layer. Okay, now if you see here, physical layer, what it happens, it receives the bits, and data link removes the, here in the sender side, what it did, it added the data header, correct? And in the receiver side, it removes the data layer, and then it removes the network header. And in the transport layer, what we had added, transport header we have added, it removes the transport header. And in the session layer, what we had added, session header we have added, it removes the session header. And in the presentation layer, here data is encrypted, and here decryption is decrypts the data, and then application layer shows the data to the user. That's how the process. Okay, this process is called decapsulation. Layer 7 to layer 1 is called as encryption. Let me put it here. Sender from layer 7 to layer 1, and encryption happens. And at the receiver side, it goes from layer 1 to layer 7, and here decryption happens. Hope you got it. I mean decapsulation, we can say decapsulation, encapsulation and decapsulation, as we discussed here. Decapsulation, and here encapsulation. Let it make clear for you. Remember this sentence, okay? Decapsulation and encapsulation. When the data is sending from the sender side, it is encapsulation, and when the data receiving from the receiver side, it is decapsulation. And here in encapsulation, I mean here in the encapsulation, it adds headers while sending the data to the sender, I mean receiver. And in the decapsulation, it removes the header while receiving. Okay, and what you mean by header, it control information data, I mean control information added by each layer. Here if you see, application layer, plain data we have seen, presentation layer, presentation header is added, session header is added, transport header is added. And in the receiver side, when it goes from physical layer, from the raw bits, then it started removing the data header and network header, transport header, session header, presentation header, and at the application layer, it shows the correct data. That's how it is goes. Okay, hope you understood this. This is all I have for OSI model, and let's go to our readme file and see if I miss any. OSI model we already discussed, which is open system interconnection model, and it explains how data travels across the network. Here we have seen how data travels from sender to receiver layer, physical layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer, and physical layer. These are the 7. And here what happens, data goes from layer 7 to layer 1 when it is sending, and at the receiver side it is from layer 1 to layer 7. Hope you understood this. And then we have seen what happens in the physical layer. It handles the medium like cables, signals, and in the data link layer it handles MAC addresses, frames, and network layer IP addresses, routing, and session headers. Everything we have seen. And this is important, it was created by ISO, which is International Organization for Standardization. In the year 1980s it was been created. And here if you see, I just prepared some usage of OSI model today. I mean, if you get any error message or troubleshooting, this how it makes engineers to easily resolve the data. Possibly layer 1 happens cables, no internet, and no IP means layer 3 issue, and website not loading means it is HTTP or DNS site layer 7. This way we can segregate the or we can uh, get an idea of the issue where it might be happening or it might be occurring on which layer, and it makes the engineerings or the uh, administrator to troubleshoot easily. These we have seen, these we have explained. This is the diagram for OSI model, and we also have TCP and IP, which is application layer, presentation layer, session layer are considered as application layer in TCP. And then we have transport layer, network layer as it is, and then it changes. Data link layer and physical layer are considered as network access layer. Okay, same again, I made it a more easy for you. When the client side, the application presentation goes from layer 7 to layer 1, and in the receiver side, layer 1 to layer 7. Hope you understood the session. If you have any doubts or something, please let me know. I request you all to subscribe to our channel for more videos, and that's it from my end. And please share the information to your colleagues or friends or someone who is looking to learn the DevOps courses. By this I conclude our session 9, which is OSI models. Thank you, thanks for watching, have a great day, bye bye.